If you are anticipating that you're going to have a good time looking at your phone by scrolling, that probably won't happen as well as you thought.
Dr. Lynda Shaw, author of Your Brain is Boss, and also Beat the Bullies, Use Your Brain.
When you're trying to be someone that you're not, what happens to your mindset?
Everybody will notice that you're not being yourself. Not everyone's going to like you ever. That's okay. It doesn't matter.
After 25 years in the field, Dr. Lynda Shaw is a leading force in neuroscience, in practical implementation in both business and life.
Probably the most important subject for any leader on the planet, yeah?
I think so. We can't be ego-less completely, otherwise we just wouldn't get up in the morning.
How is social media serving you? How is it wiring your brain? Let's do this.
The thing that's profound is when people realise how much control they have. When I've said things in several different ways and tried different things, and it's dawned on them going, you mean I can actually change that? Well, how do I do that? You've got to want to enough.
What's the most significant that you've ever felt?
Giving birth to my babies.
That day, was it?
Yeah.
When was that?
Ouch.
I'm not allowed to say that, am I? We can't rewind now. It's already happened.
It was a long time ago. It was a long time ago. I'm a grandmother now.
What are the names?
What, my children?
Yeah.
Francesca and Michael.
All right, so that from a life perspective, that's the most significant you've ever felt. What about in a working environment? Who's helped you feel significant more than anyone else?
I think anybody who actually does something as a result of my contribution to what we're doing at the time. So anybody who actually does what I've suggested and it's worked,
right,
that helps me feel significant.
So what's the difference between fulfilment and significance?
Good question. I think fulfilment is something that comes very much from within. It's almost like it encompasses lots of things. Fulfilment as in, could be anywhere, it could be anything, couldn't it? You don't necessarily need someone else there. You feel fulfilled just by watching the birds fly. You feel fulfilled by watching the rain fall a lot. We're in England.
I'll tell you where my question came from, because the example that you gave, you feel significant when they've done something with what you've helped them do. To me, that's fulfillment is in you and significance is in them. You're helping them feel significant by doing that, so you feel fulfilled. That's where the question came from. But is it right that? I
think you both feel significant. I think, and equally, you will feel a better understanding, a better bonding with one another in a business relationship setting. You would feel that you can trust one another. It would endorse trust. It would create more trust. If somebody is feeling significant by following what you suggested, and then you feel significant because they have followed what you have suggested, and it works, then there is a fulfillment there. Excuse me. There's fulfillment there. So they feel fulfilled because, oh my goodness me, it's actually worked. And invariably that means that whatever they're doing has helped others, because that's what happens in business, doesn't it? It's never just about numbers. It's always about other people when you do these things.
So the significance is kind of mirrored back. It's a double hit, really. Mm-hmm. If you've helped someone feel significant, you're kind of feeling it yourself. Is it automatically reciprocated? Do you feel? Yeah, is that an act then for you?
I think no, it's not automatically. It depends on the value you put on the contribution. If you don't put enough value on it, then it wouldn't come hand in hand with significance, because it's about being valued and valuable.
Yeah, so I'm thinking that it might. If I'm helping someone else feel significant, and to me it's nothing, I'm not going to feel significant then. But to me, if I understand the impact of what I've done and help someone else feel significant, then I appreciate it more.
You can, but you take, for instance, altruism. When we give something to someone without expecting anything in return. Now, my colleagues in social psychology would say there's no such thing as altruism, because you do get something in return. And I think it's similar here, because if you are kind and generous to someone, or you're helping them feel significant, you're doing this, you feel good about yourself.
Yeah.
Right. And if you're feeling good about yourself, you're stimulating the feel-good neurotransmitters in yourself. So you are getting something in return.
The feel-good neurotransmitters.
Yeah, I know, it's a dreadful saying, isn't it?
No, it's beautiful. What are they and where are they? Right, so the feel-good neurotransmitters, they're in your mind? In your heart?
Everywhere. They're in your gut, everywhere. Yeah, there's more serotonin in the gut than in the brain.
Do you have to create a connection between the gut and the brain?
There's always a connection. You can't separate the two. There's always a connection between the gut, the brain, the heart, everything. We can't, which is one of the problems with our orthodox medical world in the West, is that we separate things a lot. So, mental health is also to do with physical health and vice versa. You can't separate them.
When you're trying to be someone that you're not, what happens to your mindset?
Well, first of all, everybody will notice at 500 paces that you're not being yourself.
Right.
They won't know that's what they're thinking, but they will know something's not right. They will know that it's not fitting well, and that will make them on their guard. And if they're on their guard because you're not being yourself, because they feel that there's something not adding up properly, they will be on their guard, and then you will feel worse because you will notice something as well, not realising what's going on. So you get this awful play of distrust, of everybody just being very careful, which is a great shame, because actually if you're just yourself, it's the best person you can be anyway. So often people are not being themselves because they feel insecure, or they feel they've got to be someone else to please the other person. And in personal life as well as in business. So if they're trying to be somebody they think the other person will like, then that's a reason why people do it, one of the reasons why people do it. Having said that, as I say, people notice, and it's really not worth doing. Just be yourself. What
happens when you are yourself?
Everything runs more smoothly. You feel more confident. You will, if you're just being yourself, because you know you're absolutely good enough, you don't need to pretend to be anyone else, you will be more confident. And when you're more confident, people will feel trust you a bit more. They will feel that you know what you're doing more. They will feel confident in your confidence.
So being yourself is an alignment of what you're thinking is aligned with what you're saying.
Oh, yes.
And what you're saying is aligned with what you believe in.
Yes.
And what you believe in is aligned with what you're doing and where you're putting yourself and where you're going.
Absolutely. That's a beautiful way of saying it, but always be flexible. Always be prepared to learn, because our own personal reality is our perception, and it's nobody else's reality. It's ours. It's unique to us. Always. So if you are there lining up your thoughts with your beliefs, with your actions and so on and so forth, if you're doing all of those things, that's absolutely fantastic, but just be careful.
Is your perception who you think you are or who others think you are?
Your perception is who you think you are. Your perception is based on your experiences so far, and every new experience you will evaluate, you will perceive based upon your experiences that you've already had. So every new thing that happens, you will see in a very unique way, because your experiences are so different from everyone else's. You and I are sitting here now, we are looking at one another, we're looking at this table, our experiences are almost identical, but you will be seeing me differently and I will be seeing you differently to the person you spoke to before me and after me, because we evaluate everything based upon what's gone before.
What's my ego then? Is that who I think I am, or who I think I'm? What is it?
Oh, what's ego? How long have you got? It's like a big conversation on consciousness. It's like massive. Ego. What is ego?
All right. Well, let's just go an easy question. What role does ego play in success?
I think a lot. I don't think we operate without. We can't be ego-less completely. We can't have no ego whatsoever. Otherwise, we just wouldn't get up in the morning. So we do need a certain amount of ego. It's when we become so egotistical that hubris takes over, and then we are we're just governed by our own wishes and not anyone else's. And then that's dangerous. So if we are operating from a place of ego, if you're Freudian, you'll have a different view of it, and whatever. But that's why I'm going, whoa, that's a big question. But we are working from a place of ego all of the time, but nevertheless, we've got to be careful that we are listening to others, as I said on the topic just before. Yeah. We've got to be listening, we've got to be flexible, we've got to be prepared to learn, or to even reevaluate data or stimuli that's in front of us based upon a bit of new information. I find that with the advent of social media as it is, you can unfriend, unlike, anything and anybody at any time simply because they disagree with you. Well, where's the art of debate? Where is the art of learning from somebody's different ideas to see if actually that's a better idea than the one I had, and evaluate properly and develop and grow from that? It's very dangerous when we shut people out and we don't learn from them.
It is. The one thing that I wrote down there as you were saying it was we can't be egoless completely. Is that pride? Is that pride of who you are? Because feeling proud of who you are is an incredible feeling, yeah? It's got to be up there with significance.
Yeah, it has. And again, we're in England, and I can only speak as I am English. In England, we've still got hangovers from Victorian times. We've still got this, we must be seen and not heard. Don't be cocky. Don't talk about yourself. Don't be arrogant.
Right.
Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. We've still got a lot of that. Other cultures are not quite the same. Different cultures, again, are even more so. So there is a cultural aspect here. So when we're talking about pride, we can be quietly proud of who we are, but not, the blooming,
Humble.
Yes. The feathers, the chest, all of that. Yeah, we've got to be, Again, all of these things, all these words we use are fantastic as long as we know who we are and we are able to be flexible and learn.
You mentioned a few minutes back about unfollowing, like, we've said someone else doesn't like it, right? Unfollow them. Is that because we're trying to please everyone else?
No, I don't think it is. I think people are hiding behind their screens.
Right.
And they are pushing buttons without even thinking about it. They wouldn't dream of doing some of the things they do on social media face to face. So it's almost like, you're hidden away. So people don't know who you are properly. You could be anybody. You're not leading with your chin. You're not opening yourself up to criticism. You're just going boom. But if you said that sort of thing to somebody face to face, they go, hang on a minute, right. and they might challenge you. There's none of that going on if you just unfriend.
I just want to stick on this people pleasing for it, because has everybody been guilty at times of people pleasing?
Oh yes.
Wanting to be liked.
Yeah.
What advice have you got for someone like that?
You've got to choose your tribe. Not everyone's going to like you ever, and that's okay. It doesn't matter. We have to stick with people.
How do you choose your tribe?
Practice.
Well, Marmite's a classic example, isn't it? Some people like it and some people hate it, apparently. 12 million jars of Marmite are sold every year. There you go. That's a lot of people.
That's a lot of people eating a lot of marmalade. And marmalade is disgusting stuff.
Oh, I love it.
Do you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go. I'm part of the 12 million. There you go. I'll probably buy a bottle a year. Something like that. All right, so people pleasing. What are the 3 steps that I should take if I'm a people pleaser?
Part of people pleasing is pleasing yourself too.
Right.
So if you are a people pleaser, and there is a gender specificity here as well, if you are a people pleaser, wanting to be liked, wanting everybody to be happy, wanting all of those sorts of things, and you're putting yourself bottom of the list, just stop it. Just stop it, because you're not at the bottom of the list. You're extremely important. You're extremely significant. So therefore, one of the first steps is to put yourself up there as well. Please yourself as well in the kindest possible way and most respectful way, but please yourself as well as pleasing others. Please others when they are not taking the mickey, because some people will just go and take from you all of the time. That's not good, and they won't even like you for it. So therefore, certainly do things to make somebody happy if that is what you want to do. That's beautiful, absolutely. But it shouldn't be an ongoing purpose in your life.
Do you know the story of 2 wolves?
One you feed?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to share it anyway. Go for
it.
So there's a fight inside everybody, and this is part of the challenge of life. There's a evil wolf and there's a good wolf. And they're fighting all the time. Which wolf will win the fight?
The one you feed.
The one you choose to feed. You made me think of that when you were talking about ego and then we're talking about pride, because you can turn something into self-pride or it can feed the ego, can't it?
That reminds me of another story of the man who walked into a village and he said to the person who lived in the village, "What's everyone like here?" And the man said, "What was everybody like in the village you've just come from?" He said, "Oh, they were horrible. They were nasty, really horrible people." I went, "Same here." Next hour later, 2 hours later, another man walked into the village and asked the same question. And the older man in the village said, "So what were the people like in the last village you've come from?" He said, "Oh, they were really lovely. They were kind, smashing people." He said, "So same here. You know, we see what we are."
So powerful. As soon as you started saying that, the second analogy, it's a choice, isn't it? It's how you look at things.
It is a choice, and for some people, it's a damn hard choice because life is really awful for them.
Yeah.
And it's a really hard choice, and we must respect that. But there is still a choice. There is still a choice, and we can only do the best we can at any given time.
Look, we're emotional species. There's emotions that are unfolding here for people, and controlling of emotion is real. And sometimes it's easier to see the bad thing than the good thing. So for example, well, what if someone's going for a job interview? What if I don't get the job? It's what you're seeing, yeah? And I learned this from one of my coaches. Said, if you're going to ask that question, you've got to ask this question. Well, what if you do? At least then you've got a balance going on, haven't you? You're balancing yourself out. How important is control of emotion right now in modern day society?
Okay. All emotion is good. Okay, we talk about positive and negative emotions, but that's a misnomer.
Right.
People think that negative emotion must mean they're bad. It's not. Negative emotion just means things like fear, anger.
Yeah.
They're all good emotions. All emotions are valuable. All emotions are really important to have. We must never deny them. They keep us safe. They do an amazing job. What is harmful to us is when we hold on to an emotion for too long. Now, emotions are transient. Feelings are longer. And a mood is even longer. So if you're in a really bad mood, for instance, for 3 days, you will experience different emotions within those 3 days. There'll be all sorts of things. You might be angry because someone's just cut you up at the lights. You might be really fed up because you've just lost your phone and it's down the back of the sofa and it's now made you late for your meeting. Whatever it is, all those emotions happen. The cat threw up on the carpet, you lost your car key, etc. So those emotions are all good. They're serving a purpose. Now, in traditional neuroscience, and I say traditional neuroscience, it seems ridiculous, doesn't it? Because it's such a new discipline. It's almost embryonic compared to other sciences. However, in traditional neuroscience as we have it, you will read and you will learn that emotions can fog our thinking. The prefrontal cortex doesn't work properly, fogs our judgment, all of these things, which is true. But it makes it sound as if our emotions are holding us a prisoner. Now, if you look at the work of Lisa Feldman-Barrett, an excellent neuroscientist, she's on YouTube, she will say that actually we construct emotion to make sense of a situation. So we're not a prisoner of our emotions. We're actually looking at a situation, I'm looking at you, and you may say something, and I go, whoops, and I might have an emotional reaction. But I'm trying. According to Lisa Feldman-Barrett, what I'm doing is trying to make sense of what you said and putting it in context. Yeah. So there's different ways of looking at emotion. The thing with emotion is this. Those sudden emotions that make us jump out of the way with fear are fantastic. Never, ever think that you can control those. You never will and you never should, and never even bother trying because they're so valuable. But when you are in an emotional state for longer than a few minutes and you think to yourself, hang on, who's this serving? Is this actually helping me? Is it actually helping that person? Who is this serving? Who is it actually? Is it the opposite? Am I doing someone a disservice? Am I doing myself a disservice?
That's a method, though, of dealing with it, isn't it? The question, who is this serving? How many people actually ask that question after a couple of minutes?
No. Well, you can't immediately.
Because
you're just
you're too consumed.
Yes, and it's for a reason. It's for a reason. It's to get you out of trouble, for you to make sense of what's going on.
Be aware of your current situation.
Absolutely.
This is why these emotions are kicking in.
Totally. Then you need to take a breath. Just take a breath. Deep breath. You make your belly move up and down, yeah? Really deep breath and think, right, right. Just drop your shoulders. Hang on a minute. Where were they coming from? It's interesting that we judge people by what they do, but we judge ourselves by our intentions. It'd be a very good idea sometimes if we switch that other way around, so that we're actually judging somebody by perhaps their intentions, and their intention was not meaning to make us angry or make us sad or anything. It was a totally different reason. We need to take a breath and think and engage that prefrontal cortex and actually think about what's going on and move on from it. Otherwise, you do so much damage. You do huge amounts of damage when you are shooting from the hip all the time. And you're just allowing yourself to stay in this reactive state. Yeah. You're staying in the sympathetic nervous system, which is all about fight and flight. We need to get into the parasympathetic nervous system, which is all about rest and digest. You're taking a deep breath, and you're alert. You're alert, but you're calm.
Yeah, alert and calmness. They teach that to your Formula One drivers of the world. The high performance individuals that have got to perform at critical moments. You need alertness and calmness. You need the balance of them both. So you can train that in your mind, can't you? It's a skill.
It is a skill. Very, very valuable if you're a Formula One racing car driver.
Well, very, very valuable if you're performing in any walk of life, which we all are. To tune in your alertness and to be composed and calm.
I tell you what as well, it's delicious when you actually it's delicious when you can almost step outside of yourself and observe yourself in your calm and alert state, and you're looking at yourself thinking, what am I doing? How am I responding?
Is that part of emotional intelligence? Being that awareness, that level of self-awareness that you're describing, is just being consciously aware of everything that's going on.
Yeah, I don't believe anyone can do that all of the time, but you can do it when it's important.
Well, you probably don't need to do it all of the time,
no,
do you?
No. We're both parents. Sometimes you want to go, I'm going to kill him. I'm absolutely going to kill him. And you just think, how am I looking? Well, how grotesque is a face that's in a temper?
Yeah.
It's grotesque, right?
Yeah.
It's an ugly face. It's a frightening face. The idea of it being a frightening face is, of course, to make the other person back off. So we look frightening, and therefore they back off and stop being so confrontational. You see it with adults. With adults, you see it with parents. With children, it's not a very nice thing to do at all. It's ugly. Yeah. But sometimes we do things that we're not very proud of. But we don't want to be stuck in that, and we don't want to repeat it so often. So if you can stand outside of yourself and just take a look at your face in your imagination of what's going on, job done. You think, oh, come.
What's your opinion on this? And, I've done a lot of reading in my time, and I've done a lot of interviews like this. Thoughts and stimuli trigger emotions, all right?
Yeah.
So an emotion is a feeling in the moment. You said it can hang around for a couple of minutes. It can cause you to feel all sorts of different emotions in the moment. Now, if that emotion stays around for a longer period of time, let's say the emotion, I'm really angry about this situation, but let's say that those minutes continue into hours, and maybe even wake up the next day feeling angry still about the thing, the emotion now turns into a mood. And let's say that mood stays for a few days, perhaps even a week or plus, it begins to change your temperament. You become more of an angry sort of temperament. And let's say that temperament hangs around for a period of weeks, maybe even months. It begins to change your personality. So you become more of an angry type person. Is that true? Is that...
If you talk to people who believe in profiling techniques, they will tell you your personality doesn't change.
Yeah.
I think personalities can change slightly, from my experience. So I would
Emotional control can change.
Yes.
100%.
Yeah, absolutely. Emotional control can change. But if you look at something like, there's enough conflict going on at the moment, as we know. If you look at someone who is in a war zone for a year, 2 years, that's surely going to change their temperament. They're going to be on a high alert and utterly exhausted and finding it very hard to think clearly all the time. All of the time. The exhaustion must be horrendous, not sleeping. So that all of those things, I believe, can change our physiology. They can change the way we're responding to things. We will expect negativity. We would expect more trouble. We would expect all of that, and that's what we will see. Now, if you're in an extreme situation like that, it's quite right to expect it because you've got to get out of the way. But if you're in peacetime and you haven't got that level of awful things happening to you, then we can actually break those cycles ourselves. If we're aware of it. Awareness is massive. Self-awareness is probably the biggest topic for any business leader in the world, because they need to be self-aware all the time to be able to respond to people properly. And we're the same. If we're self-aware of the fact that we are stuck in this sticky, gloopy place, we can do something about it. If we're not aware of it, we would just keep on going.
Well, I'm not going to deny that. So self-awareness is probably the most important subject for any leader on the planet, yeah?
I think so.
Which is emotional intelligence. It's one part of emotional intelligence, because regulation is the second part, managing.
Yeah.
Being aware of your situation and your own emotions is one thing. Managing them is a different thing.
But also self-awareness incorporates other things, like being self-aware when you're in a conversation with somebody and how you're coming across. There's a lot of things to be self-aware of, the habits that you have.
Yeah.
What habitual ways have you got responding to people? Codependency with certain people in the office. You know full well that somebody is going, as soon as they open their mouth, they're going to say what you think they're going to say, and you're straight in before they've even finished the sentence.
Yeah, not listening.
No, not listening, and you're just in this loop. You're feeding one another. The way you change that is to break it, do something completely unexpected, and the other person will go, "Whoa, hang on a minute, we're off script. I've got to think now." So you need to change those scripts, those schemas that we have. So there are ways that you can break these things, but you have to be self-aware on so many levels.
How do you break it then? What's a safe way of getting the attention of the other person?
Let me give an example. Years ago, my husband asked our solicitor to do a particular thing for us, and I went to the solicitor's office. The solicitor's name was Peter. It was awfully raw, terribly far back, awfully British. And Peter was wonderful. He was a good friend of ours. Now, dopamine, the chemical dopamine that so many people know about these days, is about anticipation of reward. It's about anticipating something that is good going to happen. So Peter's dopamine levels would have been really high because he was going to see us, his friends. My husband David, his dopamine levels were high because he's expecting Peter to have done what he asked him to do. We got into the office and Peter hadn't done what David asked him to do. David immediately rose and he was like, "Why haven't you done that?" And then both of these men, their dopamine levels plummeted to the ground, which meant they're now in brain fog, okay? Yeah. They're shooting from the hip. They were like two pairs of antlers locked and they were not going anywhere. It was so boring. And I watched these two men, they were doing this dance. Anyway, I was looking around the room and I looked at the top of a cupboard, and on top of the cupboard was Peter's courtroom wig. And I said to Peter, "Peter, how do you clean that thing?" He went, "Good God, girl, you don't clean it, you kick it round the gutter to make it look even dirtier." And they laughed. Dopamine levels began to rise again. They started to think clearly, and they had a sensible conversation of why this particular thing hadn't been done, and it was for a very good reason. That's how you change the loop.
Distraction.
Yeah. Distraction, do something that is unexpected, say something amusing that is not sarcastic or hurtful, say something that is amusing, and you'll break the loop.
Break the loop, especially for unwanted emotions.
Yes, very much so. And useless, when an emotion becomes useless. It's not helpful.
So you said earlier on, all emotions are good,
Yeah, they are.
apart from the useless ones.
No, they become useless.
Useless situation.
Yeah, they become useless when you hold on to them for too long.
What you hold on to holds on to you. Is that true?
What you hold on to holds on to you. If I'm holding on to anger, it will hold on to me. I suppose you could say that.
It's a magnet.
Yeah.
How do you let go of it? Because you're feeling angry because you're holding on to it. So it's holding on back. How do you let...
Physically, I suggest going for a walk, running up and down the stairs if you're able to run. If you're in a wheelchair, sit in the wheelchair and conduct the 1812 overture with a pen. Anything. Physically move any which way you can.
Move.
Yeah. Move. Change where you are, change your perception, change the reality of that moment, get the heartbeat going, get your breathing going, all of those things.
It's really good advice though, isn't it? In that moment, move.
Just move.
Because it changes your physiology, yeah?
Yeah. If you are with somebody with advanced Alzheimer's disease, and sometimes people, when they are that poorly, they can become quite aggressive. Not, of course, not always, but sometimes. So therefore, if they are in that place, then you change. You go, oh look, there's a robin out of the window, and they might still be holding on to that anger. Then actually physically move them to a different part of the room. And we're the same. We're the same with the healthy brain.
Let's have a look at the social media you mentioned earlier on. How is that rewiring people's brains at the moment?
Everything rewires your brain. Your brain changes your behaviour changes your brain, which it gives us a modicum of control more than we realise we have.
But let's say, for example, someone's been scrolling social media channels, skimming them, doing the reels, looking at the pictures and all this kind of stuff for a few hours a day for a few years. How is their brain being rewired? What's actually happened?
They will probably be looking at it and bored whilst looking at it, because I bet if you do any of that, can you remember it next? 5 minutes later, you haven't got a clue what you looked at. Have you? It's boring.
So that's interesting, isn't it? Because the invention of phones is like you'll never be bored again. The reality of what you're saying right now is actually almost certainly, whilst you're skimming, you will be bored.
It's not stimulating. Unless something is really, whoa, that's exciting, that's funny. But most of it, it's not stimulating, is it? Otherwise you wouldn't keep going and going.
But let's say some of it is stimulating because the hooks and grabbing attention and all of this kind of thing, everyone's competing with content to do this. To get that little dopamine hit. What effect is dopamine having on young people?
What, by scrolling?
Yeah.
Dopamine. If you are anticipating that you're going to have a good time looking at your phone by scrolling, then the dopamine levels will be stimulated. But the reality is, of course, that that probably won't happen as well as you thought. So you might decide, it might be, for instance, like there's a couple of reels that are really funny or great, and therefore you get that reward that you expected. But then it flatlines, it levels out. So that probably the chances are that you will do it more because you're wanting that feeling that you had. When it was actually quite stimulating, when it was funny or fun. So you'll keep doing it more and more and more because you're looking for that hit. And that's what's going on. But most of the time, it is boring. It's not stimulating. Otherwise, you'd remember all this stuff.
But that's why you keep scrolling, because you want the next thing to stimulate you.
Yeah.
So you're looking for the excitement. So you're actually bored whilst you're doing it.
Yeah, exactly. And people don't realise because you lose time.
Yeah, time goes.
Yeah, time goes really quickly. So you have no idea how long you've been doing this stuff.
And it's only when you realise that there is a ticking clock, and it's sometimes something catastrophic or bad in your life has got to happen for you to really appreciate time.
Yeah.
And that's sad.
It's awfully sad. And what's even sadder is that once that terrible thing has happened and we realise how quickly time goes, we'll go back to normal and not have learnt the lesson.
But let's say someone's skimming for an hour a day. Let's just say it's an hour a day. And you're going to recommend, instead of doing an hour a day, they do 50 minutes. So we're going to take 10 minutes off that. What should they do for self-development, to rewire their own brain, to get themselves stronger mentally or emotionally in those 10 minutes? Because everyone's got the time.
Yeah, okay. Everyone's got the time. Everyone's got that 10 minutes. They must do how they want their brain to be wired. They choose how they want their brain to be wired. Do I want to be more intelligent? Do I want to understand a new language? Do I want to play
decide
the
what you
piano?
want?
Pardon?
So decide what you want.
Yeah, decide what you want and go and do it, and then you'll wire your brain accordingly.
I mean, so people listening now, they'll be doing this on. Should they literally make a decision now, and then just go with it until more information's presented, and if a better decision comes up, just go with that one?
Yeah, if it's a better decision, maybe you've evaluated it properly. Yeah, absolutely. Because, I mean, we can't rewire the brain completely. It's not like that. But we can certainly wire a brain according to our behaviours. So what we're doing is changing our behaviour. We're choosing to do something different. And then we will wire our brain to do that. That's how we learn. It's called long-term potentiation. So basically what we do is we do something new and different, and the neurons will start to fire together. Neurons that fire together wire together. So therefore, that's how we rewire the brain.
I like James Allen's phrase, 1902. Right thought is mastery, self-control is strength, and calmness is power.
Nice.
It's a great phrase, yeah? And, when you said, make a choice, decide what you want, is there a better decision than emotional control? Decide to control your emotions.
To control your emotions is great as long as I say, you don't beat yourself up because you have an emotional outburst because something has happened. Because, again, it's for a reason. But you then need to control it. Yeah, you can't allow these things to eat you up.
What's the craziest thing that you've seen when you're helping people? Because you help a lot of people with neuroscience, yeah? What's the craziest thing, not mentioning any names?
Craziest thing? In what context?
Someone's come to you for help in a certain situation, and it's an extreme example. And
right.
And you've had to go then and help them in some ways think differently about the situation.
I'm a psychologist, but I'm not an applied psychologist, so I don't work as a therapist. I work with business people and in organisations and geniuses. That's my new thing. Geniuses. That's another thing. But the thing that let me think. Sometimes the thing that's profound is when people realise how much control they have. When it's dawned on them, when I've said things in several different ways and tried different things, and it's dawned on them going, you mean I can actually change that? Well, yeah, you can change that if you want to. You've got to want to enough. Well, how do I do that? You've got to want to enough. So if it's a habit, you've got to work out the habit no longer serves you, which is the hard bit. And then once you've worked that out, then you replace the habit with something else. By replacing it, you're wiring the new behaviour, and the old behaviour becomes
I interviewed
less
a lady,
powerful.
Dr. Heatherwright. I don't know if she's a doctor. She might be. It's Heatherwright either way, so she might be a doctor. And she said when you're developing a new habit, initially you've actually got to force yourself. She used that word, down the new route. You've got to consciously force yourself down the new pathway to do it, to replace the... Is that right or not?
I would prefer not, because if you force yourself to do something, you're not going to keep doing it. You've got to actually do it because you like it. You've got to stimulate that dopamine again, because actually, I like doing that.
What happens if you don't like it?
You put it off. You can be forced to because you have to. Sometimes you have to change a habit because your circumstances have changed so much. You've broken your leg or something.
You coach and mentor and help psychologically business leaders and geniuses. So let's say one of them, they don't actually like communicating with their teams. I'm making that up. But they've got to communicate with the teams, but they don't like it. What do? Do you
Got to
help
make
them
it a
like
pleasure.
it? Right.
You've got to make it a pleasure. You've got to, if that's you've got to actually work out how you're going to make this a pleasurable experience for you individually, and that's what we work with.
So that's irrespective of the challenge that you're facing.
Yeah.
Work out how on earth you're going to make this a pleasure.
Yeah.
Because if you don't see it as a pleasure, you will avoid doing it.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Have you heard the phrase mind shift? So like a shift of mindset, a shift in the way that you think. Yeah, you've heard that phrase before.
Yeah.
What's the key to having a mind shift?
Key to having a mind shift is almost like an epiphany. It's almost like a dawning. It's like, oh, goodness me, I had no idea that was going on. And you're ready to hear it.
Right.
Because, you do need to be ready to hear this stuff for you to, it makes you sit up. And that sort of bolt, if you like, of lightning or whatever, your mind will shift to a different way of thinking because of it. You know that if you go to a presentation or a conference, somebody says just one thing and go ding.
You see, though, there's some magic ingredient in what you just said that's hidden in that. When you go to a presentation or a conference, you're giving yourself space, a different environment, space and freedom to think. And you're at a conference, not for 5 minutes, not in a little situation, all day. To me, the immersion and the space coupled together with someone speaking, an opportunity to have an epiphany, are the critical ingredients. You got to have that space.
You have got to have that space, but equally you can be a bit anaesthetized with that space. Because if you've got a few boring speakers up there, you're glazed over. You're staring at their Adam's apple and you're wishing the slide deck didn't have 50,000 words on. So you can actually anaesthetize yourself by that much space.
That's interesting. I get it, what you're saying.
Right? You've been to a conference, you think, I've only come for the networking. I wish this person would shut up.
You know what? I've never been to a conference and not got anything out of it.
Now, that might be you as a person.
I think it is. It's what you said earlier on. It's come on. It's how I'm seeing the world.
Yeah.
There's something in this.
Yeah, you have an energy about you. You really are enthusiastic, and you have goals. You have ideas that you want, and you're open-minded to asking questions. So you won't go anywhere without getting something out of it. It's part of who you are. Maybe you should teach that. That'd be a really good plan. Bottle it, sell it.
There you go.
Yeah.
The art to going anywhere where you want and getting what you want from it.
Well, but sometimes you don't know what you want, but then that's good too, because you can be so open-minded that you're just going to listen and think, oh, they said that. How does that fit with this? And you start to almost have a mind map going on, or linking things up in your head.
There comes a point, Lynda, when you've actually got to take it. Hearing it is one thing, seeing it is one thing, grabbing hold of it, putting it in, doing something with it,
absolutely,
is a completely different thing. Well,
I go to conferences all the time. I'm a speaker, so I was at conferences, and I come up with reams of notes sometimes, and I'm looking at them thinking, I'm not going to do any of these. Just one. Just take one thing that is really going to work for you, that you're going to run with.
I think that, making the notes is one thing, but then going, bam, that's the biggie. This is what I'm going to... Making a decision.
Yeah, making a decision, making a choice.
If you don't give yourself the time to do that at the end of the conference, maybe you're just not going to do anything with it.
Yeah, I know people who go to conferences and they give themselves a day off the following day, especially if it's a 3-day conference. Now, not many people have got that luxury to be able to do that. They go straight back into the office, or straight back into family life, or straight back into whatever. But to actually give yourself just an hour, on the train home, or you stop at the motorway services or something, just something where you have got that hour just to quickly go through them, and the one that jumps out at you is the one that you think that's going to be the most valuable.
Do you need an hour?
No, it depends how many notes there are. It could be like so many.
See, for me, I need to be... I'm just practically trying to bottle what I would do here. I don't necessarily need an hour. I need a deeper, I need immersion, but a deeper definition of immersion for me is concentration. I need concentrated time where I'm focused on this. I'm understanding practically what's in front of me. I'm understanding the skill set I've got. I'm understanding my goals. And once I've got all three of those in dynamically working together and I'm concentrated, I'm looking at that and I'm working it out, and I can start to see, yeah, that's the bit. That's the bit that's sticking out. I'm going to go with that. So that's why I'm challenging the time. It's not that I need an hour.
Maybe you need incubation time. Rather than a slug of time, maybe it's incubation. I'm a great believer in incubation. I think it was Graham Wallace, the founder of the London School of Economics, co-founder of the London School of Economics, a psychologist. Some years ago, he came up with a 4-step plan for making decisions and problem solving. And his third step is incubation. I think it's his third step. But basically, and it's controversial, some people don't agree with it, but it works for me, in that I'm doing something, I've written copy about something, I'm doing something I've had to concentrate on, been to a conference, whatever, and then I sleep on it, or I stare out of the window watching the rain fall yet again and again, or something where I'm put my brain in alpha frequency, which is that sort of semi-meditative state. That is an incubation time for me, and then all of a sudden you think, got it. It comes to you. It's like when you're in the shower.
Yeah.
Yeah, all of a sudden the ideas come to you. Sometimes if you look through your notes and then let it incubate, not think about something totally different, you then know which one to actually
I quite
run
like
with.
the concept there of incubation. There you go. We've come up with that today. You've heard of Jim Rohn, yeah?
Yeah.
So what do you think of this phrase of his? You got two choices. You can make a living, or you can design your life.
Why are they mutually exclusive?
Go on, carry on.
Why can't you do both?
Design a life that makes you a living.
Yeah.
So you got one choice.
That'll do.
Yeah.
This is a good enough.
Yeah, it is. It's good to unfold that. So there's one choice. Design your life
And make
and make a living off the
time.
back of it.
Yeah.
Because you need to make a living.
I think the point he's probably making is the mundane jobs, but so if you do not want to do a job that you're doing, then you're not designing your life. It's probably that where it's coming from, but I'm guessing. But the trouble is, there are a lot of people who don't know what they want to do with their life. They will do those jobs that are available to them, and we need them to. But so therefore, if you look at some, I don't know, if you go to Italy and you see waiters in restaurants in Italy, they are the best waiters ever because they make it the best job it can be. So you can just be the best at doing a job that some people think is not a good job to have. Make it the best you can be, and then all of a sudden you're designing your life.
What do you think of Brené Brown then? She says, let go of who you think you're supposed to be and start embracing who you are.
Oh, yeah.
All the way.
Yeah, definitely. It doesn't mean to say that again, circumstances will dictate that some people will have to do things they would rather not in their workplace, for instance. But however, you can certainly embrace that in other ways.
I've got some quick questions for you here. What book has had the most profound impact on you?
What? Book. Well, Man's Search for Meaning.
Viktor
Every
Frankl,
time. Yeah, every time. Viktor Frankl, I could not put it down. I was glued to it.
Well, arguably changed humanity more than anyone else. When there's a big enough reason why, you'll find a way.
Totally. I mean, it's an astonishing book, and it did actually change my life. And I'm not a person to say things like that easily, so it was very profound.
What changed?
Way I viewed what I do, the way I appreciated time more as well.
Right.
And there was an element of my own mortality. It sort of makes you think. It makes you think on such a deep level.
Yeah.
It really does.
It does. It hits home with emotions on it. It's definitely on the Hall of Fame bookshelf, that one, isn't it?
Totally up there, number one.
Anyone listening to this, what's the first action you think they should do after this? After listening to this conversation?
Well, I would like to think that this is huge amounts of food for thought for a lot of people. I would like to think that they take one thing, and perhaps what I would hope is that people have more control over their destiny than they think. Not completely, by any means, but they do have more control than they think. So choose wisely.
Choose wisely. Your own destiny.
Wisely.
You're in charge.
Choose wisely. If you can. If you can. I appreciate some people, as I've said before, have awful circumstances that they're having to deal with. But if you can, yeah.
Who's the most successful business person?
Business person? Depends how you define success.
It does, yeah.
So if it's a person who's got the most money or more, I don't think that's necessarily successful. If you've got a person who's got maybe working, heading an organisation where it's helping the planet, where we're working on climate change and everybody enjoys working for them and everybody's making a good living, I'd say that's successful.
Anyone springing out?
No.
I'll tell you who is for me.
Go on.
People get sick of this because I mention her all the time. Mary Portas. She's stands up for some of the things that you just said there. Sustainability, kindness economy. Be kind or you'll be found out. You know, she's a leader. Yeah. That was standing out for part of your definition. You know, but there's plenty of ways of defining success. What is your definition of success?
To be useful.
To others. Are we all servants?
Oh yes, of course. From the minute we're born, it's quite interesting if you look at the psychology of birth right through. Is that generally is that an infant is born and their focus is to become independent. To become independent of the mother, to start dressing themselves, or the main caregiver to start dressing themselves. They start to become independent, and the parents are desperate for them to be independent. And then when they are, we're going, they're independent. I want to be needed, but they're independent, and that's what they do. And then they become independent. They get into teenage life. They're very good at becoming independent then, and they're very good at cutting that umbilical cord forever. And that's another story. But they're doing that because their brain is pruning and all the other things that we read about, which is true. And then so now all of a sudden we're in our early 20s and we're now really independent. We can do anything we want and we're feeling omnipotent. We can conquer the world. And then we meet someone and we give our independence away, or a chunk of it, to our new partner. And then all of a sudden we're going through life and we start breeding, or maybe not, depending on our preference. And we have older parents. And those older parents are trying desperately to keep hold of their independence, but we, in our maybe 40s, have now got young people or not, and we've got older people, and we're taking the independence away from the elders. And all they want is to be independent and feel significant, but we're taking that away. So they're fighting to keep their significance. They're fighting to keep their independence.
What about interdependence?
Oh, well, there is always that going on.
Well, is that the highest there?
What, interdependence?
Yeah, synergy. You and I.
Yeah, synergy.
You and I together.
Totally.
You're independent. I'm independent, but you get me and I get you, and we know what to do.
Well, then you've got this lovely wheels turning, which is how it should be. But what I find is terribly sad is that an older person, when they're in those really twilight years, is they should be looking back at their lives to think to themselves, what was it about? What was my life about? And we deny them that time to think like that because they're fighting for their independence all the time. So they're not, and it's a shame. So this is quite interesting, this journey that we have about success and what we find is important.
I don't know if I'm out of turn asking this. I mean, what's your life about? If you were to say this now. Because someone said to me something very profound. Brad Sugars, actually. He's the founder of ActionCOACH. He goes, I don't want to live a legacy. I don't want to leave a legacy. I want to live a legacy.
That's what I'm doing. I'm doing that because I am mentoring geniuses. And because we are so badly in need of ideas, massively brilliant ideas that are going to change the course of our history as it stands at the moment. Because when I look at my little people in my family, I think to myself, my crumbs, what's the world going to be like when they're my age? And it's like huge, we're drowning and burning. So we need geniuses. And a lot of geniuses can't communicate. I can. That's my legacy. So I am helping them communicate their genius ideas so that something good might come out of it. I'm living that legacy.
You know what my favourite bit of this conversation has been?
Go on then.
I love the whole depth on emotions and emotional control. And, you know, something you said quite earlier on, all emotions are good.
Oh yeah, don't ever be worried about emotions.
They're all good.
Just don't let them hang around too long.
What's your favourite bit of the conversation been?
I like the wolf story.
The wolf
I like the wolf story.
You, Francesca and Michael,
Yeah, I liked the wolf story.
You're the wise lady.
Apparently so. According to you, I'm the wise lady. I'll take that. Thank you, James.
Well, thank you for being in my life, Lynda.